First Contact's Price. High Counselor Vena stood before the crystalline observation window of the Zenth Central Command. Her iridescent scales dulled with worry as she watched the last civilian transport disappear into fold space. Behind her, the emergency council session had devolved into chaos, voices rising in panic as the latest sensor data streamed across their neural interfaces. The Vorkath swarm will reach our outer colonies in 36 cycles, First Admiral Ixel announced, his normally melodic voice stripped of all harmony. Our computational models show no scenario where our defense fleet survives first contact. The Vorkath, even their name sent shivers through Vena's tertiary nervous system. For millennia, they had been nothing but stories, horror tales of a silicon-based hive mind that consumed entire civilizations, breaking down both organic and synthetic matter to fuel their endless expansion. Now they were real, and they were coming. We've exhausted all diplomatic channels, Minister Zora added, her crystalline head crest flickering with distress patterns. The collective refuses to intervene. The Meridian Alliance claims their forces are too far to respond in time. We are alone. Not entirely alone, Vena thought. There was one option they hadn't considered, one that the Council would consider madness. She turned from the window, her decision made. There is another possibility, she said quietly, but her words cut through the chaos like a plasma blade. We could request aid from the humans. The chamber fell silent. Then, predictably, the outcry began. The Deathworlders. Ixel's scales flushed with shock. High Counselor, with respect, they're barely civilized. They evolved on a planet with crushing gravity and toxic oxygen levels. Their response to any challenge is violence. Precisely, Vena replied, calling up the classified reports from their covered observations of Earth. They survived conditions that would kill any of us in minutes. Their entire history is a story of overcoming impossible odds. And most importantly, they've never lost a defensive war. The images hovering in the chamber's center shifted to show human military exercises. The Council watched with a mixture of horror and fascination as the creatures moved with impossible speed and strength, their bodies adapted to gravity nearly 3 times stronger than Zenth standard. But their technology, Minister Zora began, is far more advanced than we've led ourselves to believe. Vena interrupted. We dismissed their achievements because their methods seemed crude, their solutions inelegant. Yet they achieved faster than light travel barely a century after discovering powered flight. They unified their planet after surviving multiple global wars. They are not primitive. They are survivors. The diplomatic implications, another counselor started, but Vena had run out of patience. Will be irrelevant if we're all dead, she snapped. The Vorkath don't leave survivors. We can maintain our cultural superiority, or we can survive. Choose. The silence that followed was deafening. Finally, First Admiral Ixel spoke, his voice heavy with resignation. The humans have no reason to help us. We've spent centuries treating them as barely sentient barbarians. A small smile played across Vena's features. That's where you're wrong. In all our observations, humans have displayed one consistent trait. They have an almost pathological need to help others, especially against overwhelming odds. They call it doing the right thing. She turned back to the window, watching as her homeworld's 3 suns cast their light across the crystalline spires of the capital. Send the signal, and pray they're as barbaric as we've always feared. The quantum entanglement communicator hummed to life, its message racing across the gulf between stars. To Earth Defense Command. This is the Zenth High Council. Our civilization faces extinction. We request immediate military aid. Please respond. 23 minutes later, the response came. It was short, direct, and would change the course of galactic history. Hold position. Help is coming. Earth fleet deploying in force. Vena felt her scales ripple with something between terror and hope. They had just invited the most dangerous species in known space to their home. She could only hope they were dangerous enough. In high orbit above Earth, Klaxons were already sounding throughout the combined fleet. Humanity was going to war, and the galaxy was about to learn why even their enemies called Earth a death world. The human response. Admiral Sarah Chen stood in the command center of the EDF Hyperion, watching as hundreds of ships assembled in Earth's orbit. The massive holographic display showed vessels of every size, from nimble corvettes to the imposing dreadnoughts that formed humanity's front line of defense. "Status report," she commanded, her voice carrying the authority of 20 years in Earth's defense force. "All ships reporting ready." Admiral Captain Rodriguez answered from his station. "The Prometheus carriers have completed loading all Titan units. Engineering reports the new gravity compensators are functioning at 115% efficiency." Chen nodded, a grim smile playing across her features. The Zenth might think they were getting primitive warriors, but humanity had come a long way from their first stumbling steps into space. They'd just been careful about who knew exactly how far. "Put me through to the fleet," she ordered. The holographic display shifted, showing the faces of every ship captain in the assembled armada. "You've all been briefed on the situation. The Zenth, a civilization that has spent centuries looking down on humanity as primitive deathworlders, has requested our help against an enemy that threatens not just their existence, but potentially all life in this sector." She paused, letting that sink in. "The Vorkath are silicon-based hive entities that consume everything in their path. They've never been defeated, never been stopped, and never shown mercy. In other words," her smile turned predatory, "they've never met humans before." A ripple of dark laughter spread through the command channel. They all knew what she meant. Humanity had spent its entire existence adapting, overcoming, surviving. Every step of their evolution had been a battle against a world that seemed designed to kill them. When they reached the stars, they discovered that what they considered normal was viewed as hellish by most species. Rather than being insulted, they turned it into an advantage. "Launch the advanced scout drones," Chen ordered. "I want real-time data on these Vorkath. Their biology, their tactics, their weaknesses, everything." As the swarm of microscopic drones shot into fold space, Chen turned to her tactical officer. "Dr. Hassan, what's your analysis of the Vorkath based on the Zenth data?" The scientist-turned-warrior looked up from his station, his augmented eyes glowing faintly. "Fascinating creatures, Admiral. Their silicon-based biology makes them incredibly resilient to conventional weapons. They operate as a collective consciousness, sharing information instantly across their entire swarm. In theory, they're the perfect invasion force." "In theory," Chen repeated. "And in practice?" Hassan's grin matched her own. "They've never had to adapt. Every civilization they've encountered has fought them the same way, with energy weapons and standard tactics. But silicon has very specific vulnerabilities, especially when you understand its crystalline structure at the molecular level. And as for their hive mind," he gestured to a secondary display showing the prototype quantum disruptors they'd been developing. "Let's just say being connected isn't always an advantage." The fleet's fold space drives began powering up, creating a cascade of artificial auroras around Earth that would have been beautiful if they weren't presaging war. Chen checked the final deployment orders one last time. The Titans were humanity's newest achievement, 30-meter combat mechs piloted by soldiers who had trained in crushing gravity and enhanced with the latest in human biotechnology. The Zenth would probably consider them barbaric. Chen considered them necessary. "All ships prepare for fold space transition," she announced. "Combat teams to ready stations. Titan pilots to drop pods. Remember your training and remember why we fight. Earth grew us strong, but compassion makes us human. We protect those who cannot protect themselves." The massive fleet began to disappear in flashes of controlled space-time distortion. Chen watched the numbers tick down on her display. Over 300 ships, 15,000 personnel, and 40 Titan units, all heading to defend a civilization that had dismissed humanity as barely sentient. "Message from Earth Command," Rodriguez reported. "They say, Give them hell. Chen settled into her command chair as the Hyperion prepared for its own jump. Oh, we're going to do much more than that. We're going to show them exactly why Earth is called a death world. And then we're going to save their lives. The Hyperion vanished into fold space, leaving Earth behind. In the void they left behind, automated defense platforms adjusted their positions, preparing for any threat that might come while the fleet was away. Humanity had learned long ago that you could be both protector and warrior. Sometimes you had to be both. The battle for Zenth Prime was about to begin, and the galaxy was about to learn that humans weren't just survivors. They were the guardians the galaxy never knew it needed. A new understanding. The debris field around Zenth Prime glittered like artificial stars, crystalline fragments of the once mighty Vorkath fleet catching the light of 3 suns. On the bridge of the EDF Hyperion, Admiral Chen watched as cleanup drones methodically collected samples for analysis, their work illuminated by the occasional flash of a deteriorating Vorkath power core. Final casualty reports coming in. Captain Rodriguez announced quietly. We lost 17 ships, 32 Titans, and just over 800 personnel. The Zenth. He paused, checking his data. Lost nearly 40% of their defense force and 60% of their orbital infrastructure. Chen nodded solemnly. Every loss hurt, but they had achieved what was thought impossible. They had stopped the unstoppable. Status of the Zenth civilian population. Minimal casualties thanks to their early evacuation protocols, Hassan reported from his station. Their shield technology proved remarkably resilient once we reinforced it with our own systems. The ground damage is extensive but largely confined to military and industrial zones. A soft chime indicated an incoming transmission. Admiral, Rodriguez said, High Counselor Vena is requesting permission to come aboard. She's accompanied by their senior military and scientific staff. Granted, Chen replied, straightening her uniform. Have the Titan combat footage and battle analytics prepared. They're going to have questions, and it's time for some honest answers. The Zenth delegation materialized in the Hyperion's conference room 30 minutes later, their crystalline forms catching the light much like the debris field outside. Chen noticed immediately how their postures had changed. Gone was the subtle condescension she'd observed in previous diplomatic encounters. Now they moved with a mixture of caution and curiosity. High Counselor Vena spoke first, her translator converting her harmonic language into standard English. Admiral Chen, on behalf of the Zenth Confederation, I extend our deepest gratitude. You have saved not just our world, but quite possibly our entire sector of space. Chen inclined her head slightly. We responded as any civilization should when another calls for help. Though I suspect you have questions about how we achieved this victory. Indeed. First Admiral Ixel stepped forward, his scales shifting in patterns that indicated intense interest. Your ships moved in ways that should have torn them apart. Your weapons targeted vulnerabilities we never knew existed. And your Titan units. He paused, mandibles clicking in what Chen had learned was amazement. They operated in gravity conditions that should have been impossible for your species. Should have been impossible according to your understanding of us, Chen corrected gently. She gestured to the holographic display, which sprang to life showing Earth. You saw our world and deemed it a death trap. You observed our gravity, our oxygen levels, our extreme weather, and concluded we were barely surviving. What you never considered was that these conditions didn't limit us. They forged us. The display shifted, showing human development from their earliest days to their latest achievements. Every step of our evolution was a battle against conditions that would kill most species. We didn't just survive. We learned to thrive. We didn't just adapt. We learned to turn our adaptations into advantages. Minister Zara, the Zenth's chief scientist, moved closer to the display. Your technology. It's far beyond what our intelligence suggested. Those quantum disruptors, the nanite swarms, were developed but never deployed. Chen finished. We learned early in our history that showing all your capabilities often leads to unnecessary conflict. We preferred to be underestimated while continuing to advance. A strategy born of a death world, Venna observed, her tone thoughtful, always preparing for the worst while hoping for the best. Chen smiled. Exactly. Humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology or our physical capabilities. It's our perspective. Where you saw limitations, we saw challenges. Where you saw impossibilities, we saw opportunities. The display shifted again, showing the battle footage from multiple angles. The Zenth watched in fascination as the human fleet executed maneuvers that defied their understanding of physics, as Titan units operated in conditions that should have been impossible. But why help us? Ixel asked finally. After centuries of our species treating yours as primitive. Because that's what humans do, Chen replied simply. We protect those who need protection. We fight for those who cannot fight for themselves. Yes, our world made us strong, but our choice to use that strength to help others. That's what truly defines us. Venna's crystalline form seemed to shimmer with emotion. We have much to learn from Earth, it seems, and much to offer in return, if you're willing to form a true alliance. Chen's smile widened. That High Counselor is exactly what we've been hoping for since we first reached the stars. Not to dominate, not to prove our superiority, but to share our strength and learn from others in return. As the Zenth delegation began discussing the specifics of cooperation, Chen turned to look out at the stars. The battle had changed more than just the balance of power in the galaxy. It had changed perceptions on both sides. The humans had proven they were more than just Deathworlders, and the Zenth had proven they could overcome their prejudices. The galaxy was about to enter a new era, one where the term Death World would be spoken not with derision, but with respect. And humanity would be ready, as they always had been, to face whatever challenges came next, not alone, but alongside their new allies. Legacy of the Deathworlders. One standard galactic year after the Battle of Zenth Prime, the Great Hall of the Galactic Concordat hummed with activity. Representatives from 100 species gathered for what many considered the most significant diplomatic event in recent history. The massive chamber, designed to accommodate beings from every known environment, watched as High Counselor Venna of the Zenth and Admiral Sarah Chen of Earth took the central platform. Fellow sentients, Venna's harmonics filled the chamber. We gather today to mark a new chapter in our shared history. 1 year ago, our civilization faced extinction at the hands of the Vorkath. We turned to humanity, a species many of us had dismissed as primitive Deathworlders, and they responded not just with aid, but with salvation. The assembled delegates murmured as holographic displays activated, showing footage from the battle that had changed everything. Many had seen it before, but the sight of human ships executing impossible maneuvers and Titan units fighting in crushing gravity still drew gasps of amazement. But today is about more than commemorating a victory, Venna continued. It is about acknowledging our mistakes and embracing a new understanding. The Zenth Confederation formally proposes the establishment of the Death World Defense Initiative, with Earth as its founding member. Admiral Chen stepped forward, her presence commanding attention despite being physically smaller than many of the delegates. For centuries, humanity was viewed as primitive because we evolved on what you called a death world. Today, we propose turning that perception on its head. Earth's gravity made us strong. Its atmospheric pressure made us resilient. Its predators made us cunning. These aren't curses, they're advantages that we're willing to share. The displays shifted, showing the new joint training facilities being constructed on Earth and Zenth Prime. Human instructors worked alongside Zenth engineers, combining Earth's practical experience with Zenth's theoretical knowledge. In orbital shipyards, vessels of new design took shape, incorporating the best of both civilizations' technology. The Vorkath were not defeated by humanity alone, Chen emphasized. They were defeated by cooperation. Zenth shield technology, enhanced by human power systems. Human tactics, supported by Zenth sensor arrays. This is the future we propose, one where each civilization's strengths complement the others. A delegate from the Meridian Alliance rose, their bioluminescent form pulsing with interest. And what of the rumors? That Earth has opened its universities to other species. That you're sharing your environmental adaptation techniques. All true, Chen confirmed. Under controlled conditions, we're teaching other species how to operate in high-gravity environments. How to think like creatures who evolved expecting everything to try to kill them. Not to make you into humans, but to help you unlock your own potential. The displays showed training sessions where various species learned to operate in Earth-like conditions, using specially designed environments and equipment. Alongside them, humans learned the intricacies of other species' technologies and perspectives. The galaxy is changing, Vena declared. The Vorkath proved that we cannot remain isolated, comfortable in our assumptions about each other. Humanity proved that being forged in harsh conditions doesn't make you primitive. It makes you adaptable. Chen nodded. Earth stands ready to share what we've learned from our death world. Not just our technology or our tactics, but our perspective. The understanding that obstacles are opportunities. That hardship breeds innovation. That strength means nothing without the wisdom to use it wisely. The chamber erupted in discussion as the formal proposal was submitted. Species that had once looked down on humanity now saw them in a new light. The term Deathworlder was being redefined before their eyes. In the years that followed, the Deathworld Defense Initiative would transform galactic society. More species began sending their best and brightest to train on Earth, learning not just how to survive in harsh conditions, but how to thrive in them. Human innovations, combined with alien technologies, led to breakthroughs that benefited all. The Vorkath never returned, but their legacy lived on in the changes they had inadvertently sparked. Humanity, once dismissed as primitive survivors of a hostile world, had become teachers, protectors, and partners to the very civilizations that had once looked down on them. And on Earth, as Admiral Chen watched another class of alien students graduate from the Defense Initiative's Academy, she smiled at how far they'd all come. Her world had forged humanity in fire and gravity, taught them to survive against impossible odds. Now those lessons would help ensure the survival of all sentient life. The Deathworlders had become the guardians, and the galaxy was stronger for it.